Here we are at CKUT 90.3 FM, and you are listening to In the Motherhood for June 20th, 2018. And my name is Robin, and sitting next to me is Trixie, and sitting around our table are many ball players, softball players, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I'll hand it over to Trixie to talk a little bit more about why we needed to do this show here in Montreal now.
Thanks, Robin. Perhaps if you have been reading any form of media in Montreal, you've seen a story circulating about the North Field at Jeanne Mance Park. The North Field is a softball field that's been in existence and in use for over 100 years, a big part of the history of the park. And very recently, the city of Montreal took a decision, and our guest will explain why, to demolish the field. Now the field is demolished. And in our studio tonight, we have Marisa, Nicole, Mary-Claude, Robin, Sarah, and Jackie, who are all softball players at the field. And they are trying to get the city to reinstate the field. They want the field back. So welcome to the show. Thanks for being on In the Motherhood tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Trixie.
Great. So maybe we could start, whoever wants to chime in. You might want to add on to what I said. Why has Jeanne Mance Park been in the news lately? What's been going on?
So last year, our community got wind of plans for the renovations on the tennis courts that are adjacent to the North Field. We learned that the plans included raising our field, removing it, and so we mobilized. We got media coverage. We set up a meeting with folks at City Hall, and through our mobilization and organizing, we got a commitment from the city to leave our field and return it to us once the renovations were over. They were going to use it for storing equipment during the renovations, and then it was supposed to come back to us.
Was the original plan that it wasn't supposed to come back to you? And
it wasn't clear. The plan showed that the field just wasn't going to be there. So it seemed to us, we were really worried that it was like a pretext to take away our field. It was unclear. So we basically had to mobilize in order to make sure that it would be returned to us.
That must have been very alarming if it's been a field that's been in use for over 100 years.
Absolutely. I don't know if somebody else wants to chime in on that. I think that we were really up in arms and mobilized really quickly. We weren't willing to lose the field. And so we got this promise from the city. And then, of course, the fall came around and the municipal administration changed over, so we reached out to the Plateau Borough Mayor, who became also the executive committee member for Parks,
and
who was in charge.
That's Luc Ferrandez.
That's right. And his office told us that, yes, absolutely, they were going to respect the agreement. So we had the promise, we did our due diligence, we followed up, and as recently as February of this year, we had a renewed commitment from Ferrandez saying that our field would be reinstated. And then we were called into a meeting on May 24th and told that actually it was unsafe and they were going to destroy it. And 5 days later, it was gone. So
less than a month ago, you were informed that you were not going to be getting the field back, even though you had a promise in writing that you were going to be getting the field back.
That's exactly right.
And in a matter of days, they just destroyed the whole field?
Yeah.
In record time.
It seems very suspiciously quick at the rate of construction and how slow construction is in the city of Montreal generally, that it happens.
The fastest construction ever.
Very efficient, nicely done. So where are you at now with it?
Well, we've been continuing to fight to get our field back. We don't accept that it's been raised, and we don't accept that it was raised, that it was taken down under any pretenses that have been explained to us that are acceptable.
We should maybe what are these pretenses that were explained to you?
We were told that it was due to a ballistic study because of an injury. There was a person who was watching the game who did receive an injury, and then after that it becomes a little unclear. There's confusion in the media regarding especially what Norris has to say about this injury. Sometimes it seems like there's one person that was hurt. Sometimes it seems like there's two. Sometimes it seems like the person that was hurt was watching a league game. It would have been covered by insurance. At other times, he makes it sound like it was a legal precedent that would be set. In any case, we were told that there was an injury and that necessitated a ballistic study, and the ballistic study necessitated that our field be taken down.
So you're speaking of Alexander Norris, who is a councilman for the Plateau Borough.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when did this injury occur?
April 21st, 2016.
April 20. So 2 years ago, the injury happened, but yet as recently as this February, you were supposed to have the field back. That seems like a bit of a discrepancy there. If it was unsafe and somebody was injured, that it would take 2 years for it to become an issue.
Well, what Fernandez is saying is that they discovered this report, and once they knew about danger, they couldn't go back, and they had to destroy the field. Like it was like a dangerous or danger zone. But when we got a hold of the report, we discovered that it was not a study to prove the danger of the field. It seemed like it was a landscaping analysis of where the balls are going, so you know where to put the fences. And it does say in the report that if you put fences at certain places, that you can limit foul balls. So once we attacked this argument, like they came back with a new argument, which is, well, anyway, there's no space to have 2 fields in Jeanne Mance Park. So we also kind of studied this argument. And once we attacked it, they always kind of come over with new arguments. So it makes us feel like there's an underlying agenda that we're not aware of, and that they're kind of hiding something and just lying to cover up their decision.
Does it make you feel that no matter what you do, they're going to come up with some kind of pretense to not reinstate this 100-year-old ball field?
Absolutely. We went to the city council meeting on Monday, and I heard a new argument saying, well, we're just going to put you somewhere else in another field in Montreal. Anyway, we're putting $4.5 million in baseball fields. So they always come up with something else. You know, we have a solution, and we keep saying, well, this solution is not working for those reasons. And they always come up with something new. We just feel like they're not listening, and they're just driving the discussion where they want. They
also come up with solutions without any kind of consultation with us about our needs, which can be very easily met.
Like, for instance?
Well, just with putting up fences and stuff like that. No one has spoken to us about that.
To me, it often sounds like they're belittling us. They're saying, look, it's no big deal. We're moving them 30 meters away to the south field. We're being so understanding with all of these people.
We should clarify at this point that in Jeanne Mance Park, there are 2 softball fields. And I was told that at one point there were actually, in the same area of the terrain, there were actually at one point 3 softball fields.
That's right. Yeah.
And so then there were 2, and now there is 1. And I've also been told that the need or the use of those fields far exceeds the ability of one field to provide for that need. Is that the case?
We definitely need 2 fields in that park as far as our community is concerned, yes.
So the solution to move everything just to the one field in your mind is not a good solution?
I look after the scheduling for our league, which is a part of this community as well. And my inbox could definitely attest to how angry our community is about having to try and share one baseball diamond that's historically been shared between our league, another league that plays on Wednesdays, another league that plays on Sundays, and our pickup, which would happen all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and often Wednesday nights. It's just... there's just nowhere near enough spaces for all of these people to play baseball.
It sounds like not having the North Field's been really disruptive for a lot of people then.
It's creating stress within our community. Like, I'm having conversations with people that I never imagined that I was going to have where, like, we're just hurt and we're upset and we just want to play baseball. You know, it's like we just want to go and play softball.
How much more wholesome does that get?
Yeah, but that's it. It's like we just want to go and play softball, and instead we're spending all of our energy like defending ourselves and like fighting with the city, which is exhausting. And then we start to look at each other a little bit, which is like we have to keep that under wraps too. It feels like a really unnecessary disruption to a community that worked really hard to even carve out our own existence.
I think that politicians maybe need to be more cognizant of the fact that communities are like ecosystems, and it's very interdependent, and everything kind of coexists, and you can't come in and make these big changes and throw down some concrete here and put up some fences there and think that the community can survive under those kind of changes. can anyone here speak to the history of the park? Now, I've read in media, In the Motherhood is a little bit late to the game on this story. I've read a lot about it in other media outlets. I've read about the ballistics report too, that it's not actually a ballistics report. It is, as Mary Claude said, it was a study of the field, of the terrain, to see how to augment the park. It wasn't a safety study like the way Projet Montreal is posing it as a safety study. But I've also read that, and I've seen photos of this field from 50 or 60 years ago, and I've read on the city's own website that the field's been in existence for over 100 years. Can anyone speak to the history of the field?
Yeah, I was actually just doing research on it this week, and I know that others in our community have been as well. I think that this sort of collective memory of the folks who play there now goes back about 50 or 60 years, but on further research you realize that, that the North Field that used to be known as Fletcher's Field has been used for pickup ball games for more than 100 years. And it actually was always a field that didn't have to be paid for, whereas a lot of other fields, most of the other fields, if not all, in the city, you need to pay to get a permit to play there, so it's mostly sort of paying leagues. So it's always been a place where people of diverse socioeconomic backgrounds can appropriate the space in order to play ball. And it turns out that in 1913 we had a really similar situation where the sort of better-heeled gentry of the plateau wanted to kick out the folks that were scandalizing the neighborhood by playing ball on Sundays. And so there was this thing, and in that case it was sort of the neighborhood that wanted to kick out the ballers, and maybe not the municipal government or the sort of institutions. And in this case, it's a bit the reverse. Now it's the institutions who are kicking us out and privileging green space over this historic community that is incredibly unique. And if anybody reads the Gazette, this woman, Catherine Jeser-Morton, did an amazing op-ed that resonated, I think, with all of us about the attachment to space and the way that communities appropriate space, and you can't just transplant them to another place, even if it's, another field nearby. First of all, there's the problem that Jackie was speaking to, which is the city's solution to displace this community to the South Field completely displaces a league, and that's very problematic, and it's not an equitable solution. But also just the idea that, this is a unique and historic space that people are really attached to, and you can't just put us somewhere else. The community won't continue to thrive.
I've heard the city too talk about regulation fields. The field has been, up till now, kind of a sandlot baseball diamond that when people aren't playing softball on it, it reverts organically to green space, and the picnickers come, and then when the ball players show up, the picnickers move out of the way. Maybe you could explain too a little bit the difference between the culture of the North Field versus the culture of the South Field, in the sense, and maybe elaborate a little bit on what you were speaking about, that it's free. There's no cost attached to it. It's up, and maybe explain what's the difference between pickup softball and signing up to join a league and playing softball. I think that's important.
I can talk about this. I come from Europe, and when I first got here in 2004, I happened upon baseball, which a game that was a pickup game that was happening at the field, and I'd always been interested, although I never got to play when I was younger growing up because they didn't have that in France. And I just sat there and I started watching the game, and I started talking to people, and then they were like, oh, you want to swing the bat? Do you want to join in? You want to, I'm like, but I've never done it. And I swung that bat, and I'm like, whoa, yeah. So that's how I got into it with the North Diamond. The South Diamond is very closed. It's a closed space. It doesn't have that kind of openness to it. We've been trying and struggling to make it work there, but we've been calling it prison ball. We're closed in. You can't even watch the games properly because there's a path next to it. There's trees. I mean, it's one side of trees, and then there's like bleachers. The new ones, you can watch the dugouts bottoms, basically.
It's not really it's not really conducive to people meandering by and checking out a game. Or,
we have this French man, Sebastian, who plays too there. Same thing. He came along, saw the game. He's been practicing. He did the school that Mary Claude used to hold there.
Oh, school.
And he's gotten better and better and better. And he's also been introduced to the game through this North Field. So we're talking about community. And I I have a family, and it's offered me a space to go and do sports and bring my family, because, you know, I'm not going to necessarily sign up to the gym. I don't work. My husband works. I don't have enough money necessarily to do all these private yoga classes or whatever it is. I go there, I get sports, I get people to watch my kids as I get to, you know, thrive and continue being active despite my elderly age, you know.
I think that's almost what hurts my head so much about this, is that so often in life now we're being driven into these solitary activities like drive to the gym or bike up the mountain or go to this class or go to that class, and all these like very efficient, or play tennis on the $5 billion tennis courts. There aren't a lot of opportunities for people to get together in the community who don't know each other and spend time together and get to know each other and break down some of those barriers that are like creating a lot of problems in the world. And what you're talking about, that you just showed up and hung out and got involved, and now it's your community. I wonder, over the last 100 years, how many other people have had that experience, and now that the field is not there, how many people will be deprived of having that experience?
Friendships, babies, all sorts of things have come from that opportunity on that field.
I feel like all of us have a very similar story in regards to...
I met my partner and at the field on the team that we played on, and we have a son who is born of the North Field. I would never have met my partner or any of the teammates that I play with or any of these people sitting in the room with me right now if it wasn't for the North Field.
And can anyone? That's I get little romantic shivers running up and down my arm. That's amazing, right? Because people don't have to go to bars or meet online. You can actually meet in real life.
Oh, who knew?
It's active, you know. In a day and age these days where, you know, people are getting more and more sedentary. You know, sedentary, or how I don't know. Sedentary.
You're from Europe.
You know, children as well. You know, the children could. Samson Smith, he was there since he was a kid, and he's now playing. You know, it introduces you to that anybody can go pick up bat and do sports and be active. You know, when kids are just sitting at home and using their thumbs to play video games, where else will you get this? You know, why kill something that special? I don't understand it. It baffles me.
I've read a lot of reports that, and I'd like to hear all your stories too, but that the field is intergenerational too, so you get people from a lot of different ages coming together and sharing knowledge and sharing good times. And is that true? I heard that there's somebody who's 70 who's still playing softball.
Yeah, well, you just mentioned Samson. Samson's father, Dave Smith, is still playing, and he's been there for over 30 years.
And now his son is also playing.
Exactly. They captain a team together now in our league.
Oh my goodness. So can we go around, and how did everybody else get involved with the Northfield? It's all similar stories too.
I think we have all of us have a similar vein that runs through all of our stories. But I moved here in 2007. I lived across the street from that park, and I didn't even notice it. And then years later, I was brought to it by friends I had met at another diamond in Outremont. Where they basically, I went kicking and screaming. I did not want to go. I couldn't have cared less about ball or sports as an adult. I'm an artist. I stay inside and draw all the time. But I went, and it was kind of a similar vibe. I picked up a bat, and it changed my life. And then I was brought to the North Field, and I went on a Saturday, and somebody told me to ask Dave Smith to get my name on a list.
Sounds like a quest almost.
It was. I could have never ever imagined this life now as a 35-year-old woman in this city. Like, as an artist, I'm devastated about this.
Jackie? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how I can.
I came to the park. I played softball a bit as a kid, and then I moved to Montreal. I don't know how long ago, a long time ago, more than 10 years ago. And when I first got here, I was like looking to play sports, and then I didn't find anything, and I just let it go. Then a coworker of mine got on the Red Bats team, which Marisa and I are both on. And she...
Did you know each other before that?
No, that's how we met.
You met at the field also?
Everybody here I met at the field, yeah. Anyway, I got invited to play on that team by a coworker, and then from there, one of our teammates on the team, he was like, oh, come to the weekends. Like, if you like the league, you'll love the pickup. Like, come to the weekends. And I was really scared and I was really intimidated. They're very good players there. Like, the ball was coming super fast. There weren't a lot of women a lot of the times that I went at first, too. And the same, everyone's like, find Dave Smith and get on the list. And you go and you find this legendary Dave Smith.
It's like, where's Waldo?
Yeah, exactly. And you put your name on the list. But sometimes when there was, quote unquote, too many girls, you just had to sit down and you weren't allowed to play. Like, for no good reason other than that they didn't think you were good enough because you're a woman.
Oh, my.
It was scandalous. But the thing is, it's like, but I was like, F that. Like, I love this. Like, this is like a bunch of people who want to play and who are coming together around this spontaneous thing, and I'm not going to allow them to exclude me because of my gender. And I kept coming back. And that's how I started to meet some of these women who kind of all of us independently had the same thing going on. We're just showing up and we'd be like, oh, thank God, another girl. And like, but we just kept going and like reinforcing it. And to the point now where like all of us have made ourselves a part of this community, and it's changed my view of like a lot of the men who wouldn't allow me to play at the beginning, and it's changed theirs too. Like, I had an experience just last week where I was like, wow, this is really different. Like, from showing up to them being like, no, sorry, we have too many girls, you can't play, to then last week they saw me coming down the street and were like, Jackie, you're here, you can go up to bat first, we'll hold the game for you. Like, that's only 5 years, but that's a major change in like the way that you're participating in the community and the way that you're perceived. And it's a space where you get to carve that out, and I've never had that opportunity. Like, I haven't made strives like that in my work. I haven't had to do that in personal life, but it's a space where you cared about enough to put the time in to make those sacrifices and have those difficult conversations.
That's a very interesting perspective. Thank you for sharing that. Because in sports, a lot of the time there is this kind of bro culture where it's like, out of the way, little lady, I'm going to catch the ball, or like, don't worry, I'll do it. And the fact that, from what you describe, organically, just by people coming together and having mutual understandings, you were able to find ways to work with each other and change attitudes is really impressive.
Well, I believe that's partly why the league component of all of this was started from pickup, to offer women more opportunity to learn and to play. And we started with, some of us a little bit, scared of the ball at catcher, and now the caliber.
Some of us are star.
Yeah. Now the caliber is, everybody's getting better and better, and, it has trained bowlers, it's...
So, what about the idea of why not just go play somewhere else? Like, why does it have to be this park? Why are you fighting so hard for this space in this park?
I mean, I think there's a few different things. One is like the historical aspect, the fact that this is a cultural heritage of Montreal. The city, just on principle, the city should be trying to foster this kind of space. They talk, their rhetoric, their discourse is around trying to create these diverse spaces and integrated spaces. And while they're talking talking out of one side of their mouth about that, they're actually destroying spaces that have been organically created in this way. So I think that's a huge reason. Beyond that, we have logistical reasons. It's not fair. It's not equitable to be like, oh yes, for sure, after the fact, we want to accommodate you. We'll just kick the league off of the other field. And another logistical reason is that there's more demand for softball fields. There's more interest in softball than there are fields in Montreal that can accommodate the players.
To me, it's
No, go ahead.
To me, it's also because the Northfield has a soul. I don't know. That's the way I really feel it. It's when you're batting, the view is on the Montreal, and because you're close to the streets, Montreal Avenue and Park Avenue, like people stop by and they watch you, and kids are playing in the grass. And that's the magic of it. I can't explain it, and I realize that the space and the community, they go together. You cannot separate them. Like our behaviors are shaped by the way the field is built. And And the south field, the look and the feel is so different, and I don't feel the same playing on that field. And the north field was not in good shape. There were holes everywhere. It's not perfect, but we kept playing there, even though we could play on the south sometimes, because it's magical.
There's an energy to it.
Well, quite often when I would walk by, I would see the south field is deserted and the north field, and there were also the stands on both sides, the bleachers. You people call them the bleachers, on both sides, filled with people with guitars, kids and stuff, and with the trees and the wind and the sun, and the south field by comparison looked like prison yard softball.
I play in multiple leagues, and so at multiple diamonds in multiple neighborhoods, and that is the only one that the neighbors, like non-softball players, come and watch the game and are part of the community. Those guitar players not all of them play softball. They're just part of the Northfield community. And I've never had full bleachers, both full, for just a regular season league game. It's not a special game on any other diamond in any other community.
I think one guy at the city council was there. He was not a player. He was a spectator. Like, he was watching games, and he came to support us because he enjoyed it.
That's incredible.
So that was pretty crazy.
I think there's also something to be said about how the league was started with only 6 teams, and now there's 12. And those 12 teams use both those fields all the time during the summer. Aside from Wednesdays, we were using both fields for our league games Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, which basically we would have 4 teams in that small space, not even a small space, it's a huge green space at the bottom of the mountain. And just think about all those people interacting with each other all week long.
That should be our reward for living in the city, huh? That should be our reward for enduring Montreal winters where we're shut in all winter. We should be allowed to have this.
We've met,
in the summer.
and like the people that all of us have, I feel like every single one of us has encountered people we would have absolutely never encountered. And we've become friends with people we never would have become friends with.
Why doesn't Projet Montreal care about that?
Great question.
We'll make the next one a call-in show. But this is, for me, this is really one of the things why I really wanted to have you all on the show, and thank you again for coming, is because I've always had maybe this naive idea that local government is supposed to be for the people, that they are the ones that we can turn to, that we can have dialogue with and we can have consultations with, and they are supposed to represent the interests of the community. And that means the whole community, not just niche interests of the community or promoting a vision. And I find with this particular administration that they're really mimicking big politics, like federal politics or world politics, where they're just making unilateral decisions and saying we're like the mighty powerful Oz and you can't question us and we're going to do what we want, without consulting people. And I know that it's not just you in this room or your extended community that are upset by this. There's a lot of different factions in Montreal who are thinking it's not that they disagree with the green vision of Projet Montreal or everybody wants more recycling and bikes and green space, but we want to be consulted. We don't want to be anybody kind of riding roughshod over what we say our needs are. So why do you think that they're doing this? To me, it doesn't make sense. Have you had personal dialogue with them where they've been able to explain to you?
I just want to say I feel like one of the people involved in this decision making had this project in mind for a while, and he wants picnic space. I don't understand the point of having more picnic space on that mountain. You've got the whole mountain across the road. You've got the whole bit where the kids' playgrounds are. Every single other facility has been offered an upgrade. The kids' playground was upgraded. The tennis courts have been upgraded. You know, everything has been upgraded. Apparently, the volleyball courts now have a fence. Now, Ferrandez was saying it's aesthetically unpleasing to have a softball field there. So I'm sorry, then, what are you going to do about the tennis field fences, which are miles higher? And apparently we can't have lights. Not possible. So It was a decision. I feel like it's a decision that they had made in their mind, and they just went through with it without caring about any of the community.
Maybe we should circle back a bit in this conversation because, okay, we were told that I've read elsewhere that it's closed for safety concerns, but prior to that, the issue was no new fences. It was like a beautification issue. So before we heard the word safety, it was all about it's a heritage site. You can't put bigger fences in the park. Mr. Ferrandes, this was his personal vision. I actually stood next to Alexander Norris at the North Field when it was still existed last year and heard him say to someone, "Oh no, we can't have high fences because it would mar it's a protected view," he called it. So back then, their angle was that it has to be pretty. And now that the public is saying, well, what kind of reason is that? You're taking something that's been around for over a century and you're saying like it has to adhere to your vision of what it's supposed to be. And so suddenly now that there's this public outcry, they've changed their tune and now it's because it's not safe. And they cite the ballistics report. And the ballistics report isn't actually a ballistics report, it's just a study of the field, so how to enhance the field. Because my understanding is that they were under the Coderre government, and we're not saying he was a better mayor by any means, but it was his thing that he was going to be fixing up all the ball fields, right? So it's possible the study was a precursor to fixing up the ball field. Projet Montreal says, no, it's a safety issue. What is it really?
Well, it started as a safety issue. And when the report said, well, you can put fences, they said, well, fences are ugly or whatever. And then they said there's no space anyway. Then we found that actually we have enough space for 2 fields. And I read in the guide that the government wrote on how to build a softball field that fences are not even mandatory for recreational fields.
Can you expand on this, please? Because as recently as a week ago, the reason that I read, I think it was in the Gazette, was that there was just like categorically not enough space. Despite there having been 3 ball fields in that space, there's categorically not enough space for 2 fields. And you're saying that's not true?
Exactly. Well, Alex Norris, that's his new argument. Now he's bringing safety again, but he's also insists on the fact that there's no room anyway. But I read all the guides from the government, from the City of Montreal, and from our sports federation, and I realized that the norms that he's talking about apply to competition fields when you want an event that will be recognized by your federation. But
oh my goodness!
And that's very important. And we mentioned it at the city council, and the mayor Plante just said, well, I don't mind. I just said that our field is 20 feet. Bigger than the smallest field we can have in softball, so we're good. And she said something like, well, we're not going to argue over a number, you know.
But isn't that...
She gave you credit for doing good research and then said, we're not going to argue over a number.
Isn't the number the whole point?
Yes. Exactly.
Isn't that the whole argument?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
their arguments don't add up.
So what happens if you're doing the work for them?
Exactly.
And you're presenting it in like very formally. You went to City Hall to present this. What other this is blowing my mind. What other recourse do you have if they're saying something that's not true, and you're saying, well, here, let me help you. I'll show you how to do your job. And then they're just like, oh, we don't want to talk about that. What do you do?
We'd like to know, I think.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like we've been to the Plateau City Council. We've been to the City Council. We've had meetings all through last year. It's starting all the way back to last year, and they were going to take down when our field was threatened because of the tennis courts. Like, we're trying to participate in our democracy and like talk to our elected officials and do some of the work and be active citizens, and we're not getting anywhere. Like we're not getting anywhere. Like we've been told the next thing we can do is write a letter.
Oh my God.
Also, like, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. But,
who
like...
you write a letter to when you've already told them this at City Council?
That's it. Like, we've said it. We've said it. We've said it. We've said it. We'll keep doing it. But...
Is anyone in this room going to give up?
No.
I don't think we will.
No.
Well, we've got the famous consultations coming up. which we're a bit confused whether it's the last of 6 or if it's new consultations. So, I mean, we've got those coming up, and we do have a petition now with 1,600 at least signatures. And so, I mean, we can talk about how a dog walker wants to walk its dog in the green, but as long as it picks up its poo, we can still play ball later.
We have an event on the 14th. We have an event on July 14th as well with Expos Nation. So we've got things lined up to continue getting exposure for this cause. It's super important. This is a community that I
want to make a suggestion, because probably a lot of our listeners, even though CKUT listeners, I think, have the highest IQs in Montreal, maybe not all of them are super empathetic or sympathetic to softball. So maybe they're listening and they're going, well, that sucks, but like maybe I want to play soccer on that field or something. So we want people to know it's not just about softball or the field. It's about living in a society where government doesn't value community and makes unilateral decisions. So even if you don't play softball, it could be something that you do care about. So people can get on board with this just for the righteousness aspect of it too. And you mentioned that you have a petition, or you have events coming up. Is there a way for people to find out? We'll circle back at the end of the show maybe, and we'll also put it on our Facebook page. But I've been kind of hogging the mic. Robin, do you have?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to speak to the point about, why does softball matter? Why does this particular game space matter so much? And I think we've talked about that a lot, but I just wanted to hear from people a bit more about why it should matter to people who really don't care about softball. I really think, it's about creating our own communities.
I think it comes back to, when we were starting to go around the circle about how people got involved and what it has meant to them. We love softball, but I think that the point that will resonate with other people is not the actual sport. It's of course the community. There's so many different things. One of the key things for me, and Jackie touched on this, we've talked about the diversity of the community. I feel like so often we just sort of surround ourselves with people who have the same ideas and share the same lifestyles as us. And a community like the one that existed at the North Field is not like that at all. It's everybody. You talked about intergenerational. People from all sorts of different cultural and linguistic backgrounds, all different walks of life, socioeconomic diversity, and also now gender. And that is a recent thing. Like, I feel like most of us, I know there were a few women before who were in and out, but most of us, it's 6 years ago that we started playing pickup on the North Field. Oh, I don't know about most. I know that 3 of us anyway. It's 6 years ago. And it's absolutely changed our lives. And I think that it changes, these are the spaces in, we talk about like having polarized societies and everybody's divided and all this kind of thing. These are the spaces where people are able to exchange and influence each other. And I know that I've been changed by this experience, and I know that I've changed other people. And it's like this give and take. And I think that's like the most important thing in society. So that is something that could potentially resonate with others.
I think there's something very comforting in knowing that any day of the week, if you go at the park, at least 30 people there. Like, we have, I think, 75 common Facebook friends around here because we know so many people over there. And I'm a very homey person, and I realized that this field became an extension of my home because I feel like I belong there. I would just finish working, and even if I didn't play, I would stop by. So I think if we just take the political view for people, how they could relate, if they could imagine their favorite place in Montreal, their favorite park or piece of green land, just imagine just verandas coming and just making a decision without asking you at all and making changes or even destroying what you like. And that's what he's up to. That it happened once, and by his attitude and the way he's acting, it's gonna happen again. I don't believe it's an one case scenario. It's gonna happen again. He's very arrogant in his explanation. I think some people like this because he seems kind of stubborn and brave, but it becomes very arrogant, and he doesn't listen at all. So it can happen to anyone here, losing a space they really cherish.
Yeah. It's pretty funny because a lot of fields are under threat apparently. So one person was talking to me saying, I'm scared for this field, a different field that he plays at. And I said, well, we mobilized last year. We got together. We got our field's safe. He's like, yeah, are you sure about that? Yeah, we got a promise from Ferrandez. Yeah. He's like, yep, Ferrandez is known to come back on those. And then 3 days later, I'm like, you were right. Funny thing that, isn't it?
Well, it's troubling that there's so much more than meets the eye, and I mean, we know that politicians. We all make jokes about how no politicians are honest, but it just seems that there's so much going on here under the surface that can't be explained, except that you guys have been hoodwinked.
What boggles my mind too is there are so many urban community initiatives that cities around the world create, and with so much money, and this already exists, and they do it to create diversity and all of these buzzwords. It's like, guess what? Look what was right in front of you, and you didn't have to put any money into it. They should pay you.
That's why I think it's a testament to the egos of politicians, like all this busy work, like I'm going to create something that will be lasting, a monument to my greatness. Instead of being able to appreciate, like what Robin said, what's already there.
I mean, this might be aside, but also the businesses in the area. I mean, we have the dépanneur, Gracie's, and Grace, like, basically would rely on us for her summer. I mean, she probably has a holiday home because of us. I mean, she'd be like, oh, how's the game? How's it going on? Oh, what's going on here? She'd be kind enough to let the women use her bathroom, and she would rely on us, and us being displaced has I'm sure a massive impact on her business and other businesses.
What do you guys do in the winter?
Oh God,
we wait for the spring.
You wait for the spring.
Yeah,
I just have this vision of like the first nice day of spring, like everybody hugging in the middle of the field.
We watch the snow melt. Yeah, as soon as the snow starts melting, we go. We sit. We watch it.
It's true.
It's very true.
One winter I was
Christmas
like,
Eve.
Christmas Eve. Yeah, we were. Yeah. I was playing softball in Laval, but I know some guys were playing on the field.
They had a game.
In December.
It was super warm that day, and they played. Yeah.
So I think like anybody who agrees to sign your petition should be allowed to come out and play right field for an inning or something.
Well, that's what I was going to say when you're like how to appeal to other people, that every one of you listening are welcome to join us on Saturday for pickup. That's how we got into it. That's it. It's like it's our community right now, but if you come and play with us, it could be yours too. That's how we got there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, inclusive community. There's nothing like it.
In case people are confused, pickup is now happening on the south field, because of course if you go and try and find the north field, it doesn't exist
anymore. You'll just be standing there like staring sadly into space.
Yeah.
Oh, don't tell Ferrandez that.
Just joking.
So can we, this is like kind of a little bit of a stickier subject and maybe not the greatest thing to save for the end of the show. How much of this is about gentrification, do you think?
I mean, I think that it comes back to what you were asking when you're like, what's at the root of this, what's the reason? And we can only speculate, but it's true what Robin said. I mean, we have an email from Councilman Norris to one of our community members saying, like, I don't see why you need two parks. I think green space would be way better. Other people could use it, which they already did whenever there weren't any softball games. But like, this was the vision that one of the elected officials had 10 years ago. And I think that we all just feel like we're this ragtag bunch of like mixed up people and from all across the island, and maybe we don't fit into the vision of like green space over uber alles, for the current administration.
I have to say that years ago when I would walk by the field and I would see your ragtag bunch sitting there having a boisterously very good time, I found it, sometimes I'd feel a little intimidated. There's a lot of kind of like big guys there and stuff. But as I spent more time at the field, I realized having those people in the park as fixtures in the park, they make the park safer for everyone because nothing gets by them. They don't let anything bad go down there. I've seen situations where passersby, where like a guy was arguing with his girlfriend really aggressively, and people step in and they keep the park safe.
Bill Lee mentioned this, but yeah, we stopped a kidnapping one year at Bubba-Palooza. It's a fact. It's true. And at one point there were some people there and they came at us with machetes when we were playing. We stopped that, you know. There's been a lot of things. Yeah, we definitely are for the safety of the park, and there's not a safety issue. The accident that happened was unfortunate, but accidents will happen in any sports game. I'm pretty sure that hockey pucks fly all over the place.
Oh, can we? Because we honestly we have like 5 to 8 minutes left. If we're really pushing it, we have 8. But the whole thing about the accident that a woman got hit in the head with a ball, and she sued the city or something. It's unclear. Everything's allegedly this, allegedly that. But people who were there, I've talked to people who were there on the field that day, and they said that the woman was sitting right by the third baseline. Were you there that day, Sarah?
It was my game.
Okay.
So she was actually not watching the game. She was sitting on the third baseline, past the bleachers, so it was into the outfield. If this is the incident that is, we don't know. We spoke to her several times. People did go up to her and say, because she was facing away, she's kind of facing sideways, so not watching where the ball. So she's not watching the game.
She's in a park where there's a ball game being played, and she's not paying attention.
Not paying attention, and we did tell her as well, like, this is a very bad spot for you to sit. You should move or pay attention, or move and pay attention. And she didn't, and so she got a line drive to the head.
And what is it everyone yells when the ball goes foul?
Heads.
Everybody yells heads up. And so you know if you're around, you're supposed to pay attention.
And we stop the game when people walk through the field. Like, we're always watching and making sure it's safe.
Okay, so I read something that Alex Norris wrote, that this poor, hapless, witless picnicker, she was just trying to have a great day at the park, and nobody even warned her.
We warned her several times.
He has said this. Was anyone from the park interviewed about this accident? So if they made a settlement with this woman who was allegedly hit by the ball while she was allegedly picnicking or whatever, and nobody came and asked you guys what happened. Mm-hmm. Don't you find that strange?
It is.
Yes.
How could they make a settlement with someone based on one's?
Yeah, I've been to court, and of course, one side is going to say, "Oh my God, I was this, I was that. It was awful. Nobody helped me," because you want to make it sound good. And the other side, you have to listen to both sides.
If you slip on the ice here, you probably have to have 500 witnesses that saw you do it, right, to get any kind of settlement. So it seems very strange to me this woman allegedly hit by the ball was able to get money from the city without any investigation.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is the thing that's unclear, is we are told that it's a safety issue, but we don't know if anyone received any money. We don't know how many claims.
At all with this
Absolutely
what I heard was that she just made a complaint with the city.
Did I also read that Alexander Norris tracked her down?
Yeah, but so it's ridiculous.
She's local too.
It's 2 stories. He's mixing up 2 stories. The one story that we know about, and the only time that this has happened where somebody was hit in the head, like he said, was this occasion. It was a league game. The Pounders were playing against the Grobats, and this is what happened. ASBM got involved because we are covered by insurance. So that is what happened. One of the league players drove her to the hospital. The ambulance came afterwards, but we saved her money by driving her to the hospital, and I spoke to the ambulance. Anyway, so there's 2 stories, and one of them doesn't match up.
You would think that
you
would think that if it's the basis for closing a historical 100-year-old softball field, it would be a little bit clearer about what went down.
We can't even get the paperwork for it, can we?
We're coming to the end of the show. Oh my God, that went very quickly.
Yeah, we need to tell people how they can get in touch if they want to, where they can sign a petition.
Sure.
When the next meeting is at City Hall to go in.
We have everything. We have a Facebook page. We have Instagram. We have a change.org petition. You can look it up either by looking up Save or Sauvons la Balle Molle au Parc Jeanne Mance on Facebook. And you'll see all the links to our petition and Instagram and all of our social media. But we would love your support.
And I just want to add, if anybody is the kind of person who likes writing letters or calling your city councillor, please feel free to do so and ask them to explain to you why they took away this crucial and historic field.
Mm-hmm. And get on Twitter and ask your friends to do it too.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I wanted to say, one last thing. We're a group of women sitting around a table on a show that's about parenting. And softball matters because of this inclusivity, and also you can bring your kids to it. You can bring your families to it. You do.
If it wasn't safe, there wouldn't be kids at the field.
My daughter's been there since the day she was born, and she hasn't received a ball in the head, and she's still alive, and she's very healthy and very social.
Neither has my son.
So we're coming to the end of the show, and thank you very much for agreeing to come on and talk about this issue. I hope that people will have a better understanding about what's going on, and they can check out the Facebook pages and sign the petition and get involved as they see fit. You've been listening to In the Motherhood on CKUT 90.3 FM.
And you can email us at inthemotherhood@ckut.ca.